Hello and welcome everyone to Harmoniously podcast. Today we have Hannah with us, and we were just talking before that we don't like titles, so it's Hannah, amazing Hannah with us. So we're gonna talk about her amazing and unique and inspiring lifestyle in between farming, yoga, and plant medicine. And so, but before talking about that, let's start with a tune in. Let's just take a couple of moments to breathe together to come into the present moment. All right, so let's close our eyes and just start connecting with your breath. Allow yourself to connect with just the inhale, the exhale. Find that peace inside, the stillness, that calmness. And allow yourself to be arriving to this present moment, to the here, to the now. Then slowly come back and open your eyes. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. So where would you like to start? There's so much to talk.
There's so much to say always. And you know me, I always have a lot to share.
I know, and it's also interesting always.
Yeah, I love to talk about all this stuff. Thank you for having me here today. I always enjoy these conversations with you because we share a lot of the same perspectives and same interests in the yoga and the plants and just living a more holistic lifestyle. So thank you for having me here today.
Of course.
Yeah, it's a huge passion of mine. I didn't realize that it would kind of become my entire world, but it did start about, I guess, 10 years ago, becoming really interested in what a more natural lifestyle would look like and what that would feel like. And slowly but surely, it's just kind of consumed everything that I do. So everything kind of intertwines and works really beautifully together. And overall, I've seen a lasting difference in myself, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I just become very passionate about sharing the information that I've learned along the way with other people. So this is a nice space to do it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know it was like 10 years ago that you start thinking of, or like the seeds of this lifestyle were like 10 years ago. And that's so interesting for me, especially. I'm really fascinating to everyone that is building their own life the way that absolutely want, so that comes from their soul, and not something that comes from what society tells you should do, but really have the courage to just follow their heart. So tell me more about how all this started.
Yes, that is really interesting. I will comment there. And it's, you don't notice it because I feel like all the people around me and my most connected network, they all kind of do similar things. But when you step out and you meet, the other people who are out there in the world, a lot of times there's a lot of contrast. So it's really interesting. This all started for me, yeah, about 10 years ago, when I started to make my own choices. So when I left, the comfort of my parents' house or my hometown, and I was living out on my own. And what really sparked it was when I was a teenager, from like 14 years old to about 18 or 19, I was on about 5 different prescription medications. So I
Oh,
was
wow.
taking something for ADHD. I was taking a very high dosage there. I was taking something for like muscle and joint pain and inflammation. I was taking birth control. I was taking allergy medication. I was taking a lot of different things that was prescribed by a doctor. And it all started to slowly build. So I had, around 14, I started having some issues at school, paying attention, and without very much investigation, I was quickly prescribed something. And then there was a symptom without prescription. I would go back to the doctor with my mom, and I would receive another prescription, and it just kept adding up. And it was really just this experience of being in and out of the doctor's office very quickly, and then coming home with a new medication. So when I left, the comfort of my parents' home and decided to live on my own, I moved states to Maryland from Kansas, is where I was born and raised. And I was kind of just like starting to question a lot of the things that I'd been doing. And I was like, I kind of don't want to take these medications anymore. Like, let me see what else is out there. So it first started with essential oils. I got into the Young Living essential oils, and that was like the first gateway to this natural world. And then I started looking into natural remedies that would fulfill the things that I was taking medication for. And very quickly, I started to notice that I actually didn't need the medication, and that I was feeling so much better without all of the extra symptoms and things that arise when you're taking pharmaceuticals. I'm not saying that they don't work for some people, and I know some people it is the solution for them, but for me, all of the bad symptoms outweighed what the pills were supposed to promise me. So that was kind of my first stepping stone. And then next came dieting. So then I was like, for the first time in my life, picking my own groceries, designing, what I wanted to eat, when I wanted to eat. And I got really curious about that as well. I started looking into like being a vegetarian, being a pescatarian, being gluten-free, being caffeine-free, being sugar-free. I was like, why do people eat certain ways? Because I was a waitress at that time, so people would have all these different diet restrictions, and I was like taking note. I just got very curious. So I spent like a whole summer or whatever doing like 2 weeks vegetarian, 2 weeks vegan, 2 weeks pescatarian, and just seeing how I felt. And what I noticed is that when I chose better options for myself, organic foods, natural market, going to Whole Foods, I was just feeling better. And it was really, really simple for me to see that some of the choices that I had been brought up into weren't making me thrive. Like, I was eating fast food, I was eating processed foods, I was taking prescriptions. So that was kind of like the launching pad. And then it's interesting enough, I started working at a Montessori preschool around that time as well. And the owner,
Montessori?
yeah, Montessori. So the
Beautiful.
foundations are, I think the foundations are around nature and around just the more, the stereotype of someone who would send their child or someone who would own a Montessori school is that they're a little bit more natural, or they kind of go with those beliefs. So as the owner of that preschool, who kind of started preaching these ideas to me, like apple cider vinegar and Bragg's liquid aminos and washing your hands with castor oil soap and not cleaning with vinegar and not cleaning with chemicals. So I was just kind of being fed this information. I'm like, well, let me try it. Let me see what this is about. And I started implementing those ideas, and I really noticed that I enjoyed them more. I was feeling better that way. And from there, I built my life in Maryland. I was working in the restaurant industry. I worked my way all the way up into a very nice position in a restaurant, being an admin assistant for a restaurant owner. I was working like 70, 80 hours a week, day and night, on the weekends, on the weekdays. And I was working myself hard, but I was making really good money. And for some reason, I was just like, I am like literally miserable. Like, I'm working, I'm making a ton of money. I'm wearing like really nice clothes. I'm doing my hair, my makeup, wearing heels to work. I have benefits. I have a company car. Like, I have everything that society tells you should make you feel good, right? I was like, something is just like missing. I don't know what it is. So I was scrolling online for volunteer opportunities because I wanted to do something else, like not party, not work. I was just feeling like that slump. So I found a volunteer opportunity to work on an organic farm on the weekends, about an hour away from where I lived, out of, into the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like just called to it. Like, I would say most of the things that are in my life now, I kind of put a feeler out there for I'm longing for something, but then something appeared. And I just felt called, so I hopped onto it. So, I contacted the farm, and the person who owned the farm was a chef, and he was a farmer. And he knew I was in the restaurant industry, and he was like really interested in having me come check out his place. So he agreed, and I would go out on Saturdays and Sundays. I would work Monday through Friday at the restaurant, and then I would drive out in the country on Saturdays and Sundays. And I started to do the busy work for them, like picking and weeding, washing produce, and they wouldn't pay me, but they would send me home with a box of veggies or eggs or whatever it is. And from there, I just was like, wow, this is really cool. I really enjoy what they're doing here. I became more connected to where our food comes from and like what food looks like when it's growing. And that was really interesting to me because I'd only seen food in a supermarket or like in a garden. Like I gardened here and there, or my grandparents gardened, but this was like a lot of food, like lettuces, like all sorts of veggies. And that's just tomatoes and cucumbers, it was like everything. So I watched them at farmers markets on the weekend and just got to talk to a lot of people. And I was like, I want to do this. Like, I want to do this all the time. So I got deeper into, talking to the farm hands and what their path was and how they got into it. And I found an organization called WOLF, called Worldwide Organic Farms. And it's an online hub where you can get on and make a profile and write about yourself and what you're into, and you can go to any location in the world. So I could look at farms in Italy, I could look at farms in Hawaii, I could look at farms everywhere. And at night when I got off work, I would just like scroll this like in bed, like staying up late at night, like where do I want to go farm? Like where do I want to travel? I want out of this like life that I'm living. I was totally into the trip. So I remember I just set my heart on it. I was like, I've never been to Hawaii. I want to go to Hawaii. And I found, I know, it was so exciting. This was like such an exciting time. I found a farm in Hawaii, a lettuce farm, and I connected with them. And they're like, yeah, of course, come out. You can live here. We'll give you a trial period. So we'll house you, we'll feed you. You'll work on the farm, and like everything's taken care of. So I was like, okay, fine. And I remember, it's fine now, but I remember I had such a high position in this company with the restaurant that I had to give him like a 60-day notice. It wasn't like a 2-week notice. Okay. So I remember submitting a 60-day notice to my boss. And I was 21 at this point. And I remember him shutting the office door behind me and being like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to go work on a farm? I was like, he's like, what? Are they going to pay you? I'm like, no, they're not going to pay me. I mean, they were giving me like a stipend, but I'm not getting paid. He's like, you're making X amount of dollars a year. You're 20-something years old. Like, this is the best opportunity you could get. If you take a break in your resume and you go work on the farm, no one is going to take you back professionally. Like, you're going to lose every opportunity.
That's such
in my mind, I was
myth.
thinking, like, yes, that is exactly what I want. Like, I never want to live this life again.
Oh, okay.
Like, I was, I was just like highly caffeinated, working so much, stressed out. Like, I wanted to like get so far away from that. So I followed that. I got rid of my childhood home. Ended my relationship that I was in, sold all of my things, I got rid of all of my attachments. I packed a couple backpacks, and I took a one-way flight to Hawaii. And I let this family pick me up.
That is so amazing. Like, I am so fascinated, all these stories. And, and it's true, like, people, like tell you they make you scared that then you're not gonna find any work again and all and that. But first of all, it's not true. And second of all, well, continue the story because like
then you have yes, I never wanted to get this position again. Like I want to cancel my resume. I don't want to be hireable ever again. Just kidding. But Uh, I don't want this life. Because in the eyes of like my parents, in the eyes of society, in the eyes of my bank account, I had made it, in my
Hmm.
early 20s without being educated. I went to a little bit of college. I went to fashion merchandising school for a little bit, and I learned like marketing and all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't educated, so I had this great job, without going to school. It's like I made it, right? But yeah, so I landed myself on the big island of Hawaii, and I worked 20 hours a week, 20, 30 hours a week farming lettuce in an aquaponics system for this family farm. It was a beautiful experience, and I didn't have a car. I had a bike, and I got a part-time job at a little organic cafe,
Oh.
washing dishes and making like food, sandwiches and soups. Something I never thought I would see myself doing, but I completely humbled myself. I got rid of all of my belongings. I kind of just let go of dressing nice, and I wore t-shirts and shorts, and I got up every morning with the sunrise, and I farmed. I went to bed when the sun set.
Mhm.
I was off of all substances. I started working with things like cacao, kava, different ideas here, and eating organic, eating off the lands, and really seeing how these people lived and they committed their life to this way. And I felt so different. And yeah, it was a big change. It was a transformation going from the life I was previously living to this new world. It was almost shocking, but I was surrounded by like fruit trees hanging everywhere and like beautiful amounts of nature. And I was taking care of baby chicks and put my hand in
Mhm.
the dirt every single day and just met people who were living like a slow, easy, good life. And I
Mhm.
was like, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. So I also found the practice of yoga there. I
Oh,
committed to
okay.
yoga teacher training when I was there. And when I left Hawaii, I went to train for my 200 hour. So it was all just like the starting point. And here I am many years later. I'm living on a 15-acre farm in Florida. And I'm still teaching yoga and I'm still working with plants. So that was where this all started. That's where the seeds were planted. And I think it's hilarious now because if my boss was listening to this, she would be like, wow, because that was a good choice for you to make. So the moral of the story is
Well,
if you feel something, follow it, no matter what
yeah,
anyone says.
we'll
Your
send
life.
him the podcast.
Yeah. This thing is to,
Maybe he's already, or maybe he's in Hawaii as well right now.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
he will be. So, oh, maybe that was the right choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's amazing, and also like it's of course. I mean, you're a yoga teacher, and it's interesting that you starting approaching yoga in Hawaii during this first experience in farming, because like I mean, yoga definitely is a whole system, right? We Most of the people think of yoga as just the physical exercise, which is just one little part of yoga. But yoga, it's really like I almost call it like the instruction manual for being human. and 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 there's definitely a lot also with Ayurveda, which is like the sister science Ayurveda, so that those two sciences explain a lot about food, and it's so important where the food that you eat for your practice, for your well-being, and so on. So how was discovering yoga while doing farming?
That was great. I would say when I was in Hawaii, I was a little lonely and I was a little bored. Like they didn't have self-service, so I wasn't really on social media. There was Wi-Fi at like one little point of the farm. So I started to get bored and I heard a lot of people were doing yoga around there. So I didn't have a car at that point and I was looking up there was a yoga book that was left in the cottage that I was staying in.
No.
And I just had like some simple yoga poses. So I started doing it in the cottage after I got off work for farming. And I liked it. I was like, this is interesting. But what really set me into yoga was when I left. So when I was leaving the farm, I was talking to a childhood best friend that lived in my hometown. It's like, okay, I'm leaving the farm and I'm so scared because I love what I have here. And I knew it was like a little bubble. Like I was living in a little bubble. And I knew when I left the container of that place that I would be kind of tempted by my past life. But I didn't want to go back to that stress. I didn't want to go back to the choices I was making for myself, what I was surrounding myself with, what I was putting in my body, how I was spending my time. And I was looking for a way to like maintain that and go back home to my hometown and like kind of reintegrate. So my friend was like, "Hey, I'm doing this 200-hour yoga teacher training in Overland Park where we grew up. Why don't you join me?" And I was like, okay. So I looked it up, signed up for that, you know. So it was when I got home. And that was when I took my first day of yoga teacher training was my first in public yoga class. So that was my introduction to yoga. It wasn't like I tried a few studios and I liked it. It was like I did some yoga by myself at home from a book. Like I wasn't really doing it right, you know, I was trying. But I learned the practice of yoga from my yoga teacher. Not with the intention to become a yoga teacher. It was just like, I want to learn this. I want something that will keep me disciplined, that will connect me, that will be the guide of my life, that will help me preserve this feel I have, this feel good sensation. Something that will keep me like on the straight and narrow almost, which is interesting to think about. That was like my intention. I want to stay balanced. And I trained with 22 people, and I was the first person, one of the first people out of my class to teach for that studio. So it drastically pulled to me. I took off with yoga and I started teaching immediately after I graduated. And I haven't stopped since. But that was really my introduction to it.
And you're such an amazing teacher, by the way.
Thank you. And so are you.
Oh,
I wish I could have taken your international yoga day class.
Thanks.
One day I'll be there. But yeah, I really enjoy it. And I think I just teach from an authentic place. And it has brought me so much that I just share that back, you know, out into the world. So my introduction to yoga was very strong because that container of yoga teacher training, I mean, you know, from experience, it just sets you up to understand it on a physical, spiritual, emotional level, and it challenges you to kind of create your life to where it would really support that practice.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. Like as I said, I like to call yoga as the instruction manual because it really gives you all these aspects of your life that need to be addressed, and you can spend one life or many lives to kind of figure out, or you can take this manual that has been figured out for 15,000 years by many other people, and it's just given to you, and you can learn it and explore it, of course, because it's never dogmatic. Yeah, that's so beautiful. And so I would say that take us a little bit to the present because there are also other elements, but I would like to explore more also what's your lifestyle right now. So yeah, what's your life? What's your day?
My day to
your
day.
week. Yes.
Yeah. It's really interesting now, like looking back. I enjoy my day to day a lot. I feel very blessed and grateful for what we've created around us and the space that's opened up for me to really live these practices. So we have a farm here. I do teach yoga. We have an online store where we sell some products. So we're at home. We are at home 7 days a week. If we're going out, it's like to the post office, to the store, or to yoga. Maybe to see a friend or two. But we spend a lot of time here on the property. And we live 25 minutes from New Smyrna Beach, kind of in the country. And our property backs up to the swamp. So we have
Florida.
chickens.
Just saying.
Yeah,
Florida.
We have chickens, ducks, 3 dogs, and a cat. So in the morning is like wake up, and I like to say my morning meditation is like a walking meditation, a nature meditation. It's very interactive to the day. I used to do more of like every morning sit in Vipassana style, and be in silence and sit cross-legged, but I kind of surpassed that method, and I still utilize it, but now is waking up and feeding the animals. So it's very early, usually around like 7. We get up and feed the cat and the dogs, and they go down and see the chickens and the ducks. And I just kind of check everything out, usually with cacao. Has some here now, but
Ah,
usually with a little bit of cacao, just set the day in a space of love and get some good nutrients in my body right away. And then the day kind of opens up from there. So we have a lot of different projects that go on here. We could be harvesting, we could be planting, setting up a new bed, or just managing the beds. So we practice agroforestry here, or
mm,
syntropic farming, where we have food forest systems that Corey mostly has created. And it does take a little bit of maintenance. So
yeah. Would you
going
like to
to
explain more about that? Like I heard about it, but and I also heard it's like the best way of farming for the soil, because the
Mhm,
soil right now everywhere on Earth is really depleted,
mhm,
and the soil is such an important, like really the foundation of life on Earth. And if the soil is depleted, and there are about like 40 years till it will be completely depleted, which
mhm,
means none of the little microorganism or all the good nutrition that are in the soil, which means that the soil won't be able to produce any good fruit and veggies, any products, or the products will be really, I mean, they really are, the nutritional value decreased a lot. Like for example, an orange from the 1920s, the nutrition values of that orange equal 6 oranges of today. And one of the solution is the agro farming, right? If I say that right.
mhm.
So that what you're doing, which is amazing. So I'd like to know more the way you're doing it, which also
Yes.
is a great inspiration, and hope everyone will follow you.
Yeah. Yes, and really you should have Corey on here to do a whole speech
Oh,
on this, because it's a wealth of knowledge. But I will share from my
yes.
perspective what I do now, and it is agroforestry.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it encompasses everything that we believe in. It's getting back to the law of nature, getting as close to nature as possible. So we did learn how to grow food a long time ago, but we also learned how to do it in a way that's most effective for money, what's easiest, and mostly managed by chemicals, right? And a lot of that is called monoculture or monocropping,
Oh.
which means grow like one row of
Mm-hmm.
something, right? So you go to an orchard and it's all orange trees all together, and it's managed by chemicals and pest control, and fed, chemicals to make it grow and make the oranges nice sized and to grow a lot of them. And that has worked. But like what you shared, with recent studies, we've noticed that it's not good for the environment, it's not good for the soil, it's not good for the animals, and it's not good for the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so what agroforestry does is it sets up an entire ecosystem. So instead of just growing rows and rows of food, we have put together many different species, and they all live together in community. And each plant serves its purpose. And it's all to support each other. And then when you're managing the system, you're feeding the soil, you're creating the soil, you're keeping all of those microorganisms, you're seeing more animals, more insects come and to live in the system, and things just grow abundantly and it looks beautiful. And you don't have to do a ton of weeding, you don't have to keep reseeding, and it's not like back-breaking labor in the end. And the initial point is a lot of hard work to get these systems set up, and it takes a lot of manpower to manage them. But the hope is that like in a couple years we get to walk about the property and there's just fruit hanging everywhere, and there's potatoes, and there's just an abundance of things. So it is kind of getting away from the traditional style of farming that we all know, like what I saw on the 2 farms that I worked on. and it's working towards more creating like a biodynamic, a diverse ecosystem right in our front yard. So in that bed, in that system, there are fruit trees, there are root vegetables, there are herbs, there are leafy greens, there are flowers. There's so much all packed into one. And it's not like organized. So in the beginning when he was teaching me it, it was like making me crazy because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not like this is not what I'm used to. It's supposed to be like, here's your row of carrots, here's your row of tomatoes, here's your row of beets. And instead, he was just like throwing everything together. And he was explaining to me that, like, some of these plants are just in service to the system. So some things you just planted, and we're not going to eat those things, but we harvest those things and, chop them down and feed them back into the system. So we don't take everything that we plant. Some of it goes back into the agroforestry system to feed it and to give it more life, to feed the soil, to create the space where the insects and the bugs and the worms and everybody comes to live and be a part of what's going on. And I'm still learning. There's like so much to learn about this method. And I'm only, a couple years into being a part of it. And it's really, really incredible. But I do agree with what you're saying. I do believe it is the way that we should be growing food. Because it's how nature grows food. It's how we found food.
It's really fascinating. So also Sadhguru is what is really bringing to all over the world, like as a solution to the problem of the soil that is depleting. So it's really like bringing this agroforestry. And on top of that, when you were explaining that, I was like, that is so amazing. It's also like shows this beautiful metaphor about humans, right? About everything, like from businesses, especially businesses, economy, because like we have been like using like our lives or humans, like we've been using the soil and everything on earth and this like trying to take so much without reciprocity, first of all, and like taking so much and like making everything so organized, all the same, and putting chemicals, trying to get more and more and more, depleting, and with competition also at the end, right? Because it's like this field is just for this, nothing else can grow in this field, like sort of quote unquote competition in a sense, but definitely between humans, we've been growing or nurturing competition. But with this false idea that nature, right, this false myth from Darwin, that is the competition of species, while science already know, and we know that it's not competition, but it's collaboration. It's collaboration, it's living in harmony, it's creating an ecosystem. And it's beautiful that you were saying that by creating ecosystem, everything just grow in abundance and flourish. And that is such a beautiful message for the agroforestry. And so for nature, so and that's, I'm sure it's also much more beautiful than a normal field of just carrots. But also seeing this in human lives and see and be able to nurture the collaboration among humans, to create an ecosystem in which everyone can just bring who they are and shine their light, and everybody would just flourish. It's just, it's beautiful, and beautiful that it's starting from the soil, this agroforestry, let's say, revolution. Hopefully it will be like a great revolution. Everybody will go on board agroforestry, and that will can then move to the whole planet. I love it. I just love this idea. I'm gonna.
You've placed it perfectly, and it is just that. It's about creating that good, solid foundation to grow in, and how will that regenerate itself, and allowing everything to come as it is in community, and to like weave that tapestry together. And it's so beautiful to watch. It's like you see a banana tree and you see like a green bean vine like coming up off of it, and it's like, okay, like this is really, really beautiful, and it makes sense. It feels good. You get to see how everything thrives, and that definitely can be implemented into everyday life with people, with work, with your habits. Like there's space for everyone and everything here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so beautiful. And also, like, in this way, you're forced, let's say forced to, but to learn the plants again, like you need to recognize that it's banana tree and what is the bean you said that grows around. You
Mm-hmm.
need to recognize what plant is it, because they're all
Mm-hmm.
together. And so you recreate this connection with humans and nature that we've
Mm-hmm.
been so much taken away from that.
And being in tune. Like being in tune, like walking
Mm-hmm.
through the agroforestry system and saying, okay, that leaf, that tree needs to be trimmed so more sunlight can get in, so that plant, so that shrub down there can receive more sun. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, how can we do that in our everyday life? Okay, that person needs to be trimmed a little bit so the person next to it can have a little bit, receive more light. It's just so interesting. And you're right, you really have to learn and get to know these plants and be in relationship with them and attune to their needs. And you just start to become with the whole entire system. You're a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we just forgot.
Yeah, exactly. We just forgot. So that's pretty much, I mean, we do tons of different, a farm just comes, it comes out with projects here and there all the time. There's like endless amounts of projects. And it all is a variety, but we get
Mm-hmm.
to, we get to create, we get to design. So we do have this more, like passive styles of income, so we can spend more time on the farm with the land. And we're in a lot of a building phase. Like we have systems going, but we've only been here for a little over 2 years. So we're still doing a lot of like actual building, like infrastructure, creating systems, and seeing how right now we're in the planning phase of seeing how we support this farm. Whether it's like, teaching classes or
Mm-hmm.
offering yoga. We just set up a yoga space, which
Oh,
is really
nice.
cool. Selling fruit trees, whatever it is, offering eggs to the community, and just figuring out how this is sustained from here on out. So we're
Mm-hmm.
still getting really curious, exploring a lot, but really just taking it slow and letting these rhythms of nature work through us, then enjoying and doing a lot of learning and having a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. So how all this building the farm, how's the farming life support your, let's say, personal growth or your yoga, or how's that influence that? Um, what's the connection within you?
It all goes together, I would say it's just a modality. It's just a way of life that's really been working for me. And I always loved it when I volunteered in the past, but to get to have it as your everyday life really changes things. Um, Kind of like you, I'm someone who has tried almost every form of healing modality or natural ways of living, whether it's yoga, breath work, plant medicine, herbalism, frequency healing, Reiki, different forms of therapy, farming, clean eating. I've explored all of these ideas. There really isn't something that I haven't tried to feel good on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's my greatest intention is I'm someone who likes feeling good. I like to just enjoy how this body feels, how my mind feels, to feel that sense of peace and to feel okay about life. Um, and to feel good energetically as well about what I'm doing and how I'm applying myself to society in this world, and to just like rest my head at night saying like, okay, I feel good about all the choices and that they're wholesome and they're holistic and they feel like natural, right? So I would say like the farming is a huge part of that. Like there's no part of growing your own food, like keeping your own animals, walking around barefoot, putting your hands in the land, watching nature transpire, and then taking that back into your house, eating it, preparing it for your family, making medicine from it, like powdering herbs and flowers, making teas, tinctures, and then consuming that, like energetic exchange. There's so much biofeedback from that. There's so much that's life giving. So it
Mm-hmm.
all goes together. And I've tried a lot of methods. I have come in and out of a lot of methods, and um, things like yoga, farming, and herbalism, working with the plants. Those things have really stuck around. There has been no part of that that has caused me to stray away or say like, okay, I don't think that method is for me anymore. Those are things that feel good from the inside out and have longevity and sustainability, and they return to you. Like, there's just so much feedback. So I would say those methods, they all just coincide. They work together to go well.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's so beautiful. And so what would you suggest to anyone who would like to start this lifestyle?
Mm-hmm. I would say volunteering is a really good way. YouTube is a really good way. That
YouTube.
is where we get, like, believe it or not, that's where we get a lot of our information. There are a lot of people out there who dedicate a lot of time and energy to share what they've learned, because it does. And even when you see something online, you really have to practice it, because it has to work with your specific farm and your lifestyle and what you do. But I would say volunteering is a really great way. Get out there, find a local farm, and reach out to them and see if they want help with simple things. Because we all want help. We all need help. But that was how I got to learn and gain a lot of experience, and then also see if I actually enjoyed it. You know, if it was really applicable to my life and if it made me feel good. So I would definitely recommend volunteering. I know Wolf, the Worldwide Organic Farm organization, is a really great place to find safe outlets, you know, because it's important that wherever you're going to volunteer and be in service to is a good container, safe, healthy, they're legit, and see what you can learn. And then just practice in really small ways. Before I was here at the farm, I always kept a small little garden wherever I was living, even if it's in pots. You know, just practicing. Go out to your local farmers market, and just start to experience, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, I was gonna ask, like, if you just like you live in the town, you can really move. You can start with little pots, as you were saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, always. I mean, whether you're doing yoga or farming or wanting to work with plants, start in a way that's realistic for you. Start with what you have. And that is very powerful. You don't have to go out and buy a property. You don't have to go out and become a yoga teacher. You don't have to go out and become an acupuncturist. You know, you can start in really manageable, realistic ways. And when you do that, that's when you see the results, because it has to work for you. It has to be authentic to your life, to what you're called to, and to what resources you have. So start really, really small and simple, and continue to build from there. And you'd be surprised what happens organically.
Beautiful. And how plant medicine come into the picture? What are the plants that you like to use in your personal growth or your daily life?
Mm-hmm. So I have worked a generous amount with the plants. I'd say nowadays I work with much more gentle plants like cacao, reishi mushroom, you know, different herbs like tulsi and teas. But back in 2020 and a little bit before then, so I was a teenager, worked recreationally with lots of psychedelics and plant medicines, pretty much all of them. But in 2020, I was experiencing a lot of symptoms from some deep traumas I had been through. And I was actually working in a restaurant and teaching yoga. And I was bartending. And one of my customers, my guests, they were regulars. They had gone and drank ayahuasca, and they had known about kind of my spirituality and that I was into natural things and yoga, and they're like, you need to try this. Like, they had heard a little bit of my story and what I was kind of working through personally. And they're like, oh, we think you could benefit from this. We really feel like you could. And they kind of just got putting the bug in my ear. And finally, they offered me a retreat with ayahuasca for a weekend, and they paid my way. And I drank ayahuasca and kind of fell into that path for a while, of working with different plant medicines, ayahuasca, wachuma, a lot of cacao, tobacco, all of those things. And I was in that world for a few years, working with a few different centers, volunteering, teaching yoga, participating. So I received a lot from working with ayahuasca and different psychedelics and lived in those spiritual communities. I learned a lot about that along the way as well. Um, and I'm still integrating and receiving a lot of insight from those experiences. But nowadays, I would say I've kind of come to the other side of that, and um, maybe in the future I will return to that space again. But as of now, I feel really good about the insights that I learned, and I'm just looking forward to continuing to embody the teachings and live in that space of openness and with the understandings that I've gained. So I also, at that time when I met ayahuasca, I was working for a couple who had a company selling herbs. So started to learn about herbalism and the internal organ system and how the human body works and how these plants can really help us in many different ways, whether it's like your immune system or your stress levels, or just healing the internal organs so you can function at a better way. So that's something that all of those experiences with the psychedelics, with the herbalism, the acupuncture, even Ayurveda through yoga, I've kind of taken all of that. And in my everyday life, I just pull from whatever resource or whatever pool of information I need to get to, so I can help myself stay healthy, stay well, feel good on a daily basis. And there's just always a tool that you can grab onto. So like I shared previously, I spent a lot of years, many years, kind of really in those methods. Like I would say almost stuck in there, like very engulfed in. And I've kind of come out on the other side of those things, and a little bit more moderation, right? So they more balance to my approaches and getting to utilize the knowledge that I learned in really realistic ways, and how it works in an everyday setting and how everyone can participate with the plants in a more balanced approach.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think it's there is a factor that it can be really, as you said, like it can take a lot out of you, like at first, because probably we have a lot to we just get excited on the healing, on the learning. And then it comes to times that's what also shamans always says, that you're supposed to learn and then don't do that often. It's just like a tool that is there. And the plant itself, that's one day will tell you that's enough. And you have to integrate all the lessons. And the fact that you are farming and you connect with nature, that's what also eventually all the master plans wants you to learn to reconnect with nature. So just by doing that, you keep this connection with these master plans, because that's the idea, be able to feel that without going into ceremony or doing anything, just keep that connection alive daily just by living it.
And that's beautiful to do it in this way, because I'm not going to like hide from the fact that with a lot of overuse of psychedelics and plant medicine, I have been in the space of a little bit of like spiritual psychosis. I'm like, oh, I just saw that leaf turn over and it means something, and there's a message there. But now it's like getting to become more balanced and know that that's still real. Like when you walk about the garden and you see a plant or a tree, you can look at it and tune into it, and it's like, what do you need? Like, what do you need from me? And you can tell, like, it needs water, it needs compost, it needs to be pruned or trimmed or harvested, or it's about to go to seed, and how you can watch it and be with it. So it's interesting, like the two extremes. Like you can completely see nature and be so disconnected from it. Or you could be like so involved that you can hear this plant speaking to you, you know? So it's like finding that middle ground of balance and knowing that we are nature, we are a part of nature. Nature does communicate to us and we can communicate back. Um, and how can we work with that information in a way that is productive, in a way that makes sense, in a way that will help us in our everyday life, and how we will, receive from that in a really good way. And so getting lost in the spirals and the geometric shapes of it all. But what can I do today with the experiences that I've had? And I will say, working with a plant medicine has made me more in touch and care more about what's happening in my garden, or what's happening even just with the plant around me, like picking up trash or wanting to dispose of things with integrity and treat the earth sacredly, because it is.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's our mother.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, so thank you so much for the time you spent with us. And I would like to ask you if you have any closing saying, sentence, a tip, or anything you would like to close this beautiful chat with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I would just say, if anything here sparks your interest, to follow that and to never settle for what society has told us, and to do what feels good in your body and find the things that make you feel well and continue to follow them.
Yeah, that's a great message. I love that. That is true. Just find your way, follow your heart, find your way. And also, like, find your way, follow your heart. Don't worry, you're gonna quote unquote fail. It's not failing. You're just trying what works for you. You're not following what they told you, what is supposed to work. So, of course, you have to try out and see what works and what really resonates. And also, you need to learn what it means to resonate. That's another thing. It's like relearn everything, but reconnecting with yourself. And you have such an amazing story, very inspiring. Thank you so much again for coming to the podcast, sharing it. I hope more people will follow your inspiring story and follow their heart like you did. And also, that they got more information about agro farming as well, which is a beautiful way of farming, connecting with plants, and so on. So all the good stuff for everyone.
Yes. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. And so if you like this podcast, you can follow us on Spotify, Google, Amazon, everywhere you prefer to listen to us, and where they can find you.
Oh, we are on loveisthesource.com, and that's our website. And our Instagram is Love is the Source Farm, and we're also on Facebook. So you can find us there and follow along. And we try to post as much as possible what we're doing here, what we have going on, and just share the information that we have as we learn. And if you come there, we can all grow together.
Beautiful. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Hannah, as well again. And see you next time.
Bye, Melissa. Thank you.
Bye.